Bernie's talking about reforming Wall Street, and basically he says, guys, it's time to break up the largest financial institutions in the country. Wall Street can't continue to be an island unto itself, gambling trillions in risky financial instruments while expecting the public to bail them out. Wall Street, 2008, man, you know, that whole economic crisis there, and a lot of people wound up out of jobs, and a lot of people wound up screwed, glued, and tattooed, you know, because of that. And, you know, I agree with him on this one. Yeah, gambling trillions in risky financial instruments while expecting the public to bail it out. And Bernie says if a bank's too big to fail, it's too big to exist. I agree. And Teddy Roosevelt actually used to break up the big banks. Teddy Roosevelt. Great progressive president. He was awesome. Bernie says we need a banking system which is part of the job-creating, productive economy. Not a handful of huge banks in Wall Street which engage in reckless and illegal activities. Yeah, I don't think that's all that good. When there's fraud and you know, corporate fraud, there's corporate bonuses while people are suffering, and insider trading, and just rigged economy, gerrymandering of the whole system and stuff like that on Wall Street. It's clearly not a good thing. You know, that's what he refers to, gambling trillions in risky financial instruments while expecting the public to bail it out. I was for the auto bailouts. I think that's something that kind of had to be done, but I agree with Bernie. I think, you know, I'm a little hot and cold on that one, but frankly, I do see his point on the bailouts of Wall Street. You know, and it's very interesting. They're expecting the public to bail them out when they were the ones that created the problem. Really, you know, I got to be honest on that one. You know, I could kind of see both sides of the issue. You know, but the other side of that is, Bernie makes a point, these people were the folks that were causing the problems, and they're expecting corporate welfare. You know, so honestly, yeah, you know, I could really see his point with that one. I really could see his point. There was a lot of skullduggery on Wall Street in that time and period, you know, and it put a lot of people out of jobs and homes. They lost their homes. People lost their homes and their jobs. So, yeah, thumbs down on that one. Yeah, campaign finance reform. I'm lacking time here. I'm just going to say I agree with it. I got to get to some of my favorite stuff. We talked about reversing climate change, I believe, did we not? I spoke a lot about the environment. Healthcare for all. Hey, I live in Canada, guys, and Canada's great. I mean, the fact is, if you're sick, you can go see a doctor, and, you know, it doesn't matter what's in this. You know, this my crappy wallet here. I need a new one. It looks like crap. But it doesn't matter what's in your wallet or your bank account. It doesn't matter if you're a poor person or, you know, lower middle class or whatever. Everyone gets covered by our health care. And, you know, folks, look it up, check it out. We got a good system. And, you know, it doesn't matter like how wealthy you are, you know, how poor you are, or any of that stuff. Everyone gets, you know, everyone gets seen by doctor checkups. Visits with a doctor, everyone gets, you know, primary treatment and care and stuff like that, and yeah, you know, if people need emergency, they get treated with emergency, and, you know, it doesn't matter if they're, you know, if they're a homeless person or something, or a very, very low income person, you know, if they've got a problem, if they've got a health illness, if they're having a heart attack, you know, or anything like that, you know, or I'd have to think of more. You know, any kind of injury or something too, you know, they all get seen. And, you know, for long-term care too. If people have emphysema, if people have lung cancer, if people have any kind of cancer, pancreatic cancer is one of the worst. You know, if people have any kind of problems like that, heart problems, cardiac issues, diabetes, things like that, you know, people get treated for that. And that's covered for them, and it should be, because we should take care of people that are sick. You know, we should be healing people that are sick. It's not rocket science to me. If people are sick, you know, it shouldn't matter how wealthy they are or how not wealthy they are, what's in their bank account, and you know, how well off they are in life. You know, if they're not doing well health-wise, I think we need to take care of them. Bernie says the United States remains the only major country on earth that does not guarantee universal health care. That's right. And despite the modest gains of the Affordable Care Act, 35 million Americans continue to lack health insurance. Many more are underinsured. But we continue, he says, paying for more per capita for healthcare than any other nation. This is where I really come to agreement. He says the United States must join the rest of the industrialized world, Canada, Sweden, places like that, and guarantee universal health care to all as a right by moving toward a Medicare for all single-payer system. It's about time. Folks, you got a choice. You got a choice ahead of you. And, for me, that's easy. I can't speak for everyone else. For me, that's easy. And what that means, basically, is guaranteeing everybody some kind of, guaranteeing health care to everybody so that people can get treatment. They can get long-term care for long-term illnesses and diseases. Doctor visits, because some disease could be starting off, and you might need to have a few doctor visits to check up on that. Honestly, let's heal the sick, and that's what my heart tells me. Protecting the most vulnerable. I'm not going to go into that because there's two more topics here, and I think I'm going to end it on that, honestly. College for all. Ha-ha, huzzah, huzzah. Yes. Folks, he says, when we talk about education, let's be very clear. He likes to say very clear a lot. He's a very fascinating man. In a highly competitive global economy, Bernie says we need the best educated workforce that we can create. It's true. It's insane and counterproductive to the best interests of our country that hundreds of thousands of bright young people can't afford to go to college, and millions of others leave school with a mountain of debt that burdens them for more than decades. And that's the thing. Do we want to leave our kids in debt, or do we want them to have a bright, glowing future? And the fact of the matter is, if we want people to get good jobs and good careers, it feeds back into the economy too, to me. That seems like something that should be done. Free education, free college for all, covered. Certainly lower tuition anyway, but I definitely think it's time for free education. I like Bernie, I don't think that we should have things, like a person's money or lack thereof, wealth or lack thereof, get in the way of them getting a good education, which leads to good jobs, which leads to good careers, people fulfilling their hopes and dreams. And you might ask, would they abuse the system? Well, there's always people that do. You know what happens to those people in high school? They fail. They fail. To me, that's the way I see it. But I think that there's a lot of people out there, if you give them a chance, a lot of ambitious millennials out there, a lot of ambitious millennials that want to start their own jobs, be entrepreneurs. They have big dreams, big visions, but they're not able to do it because of wealth, because the economics isn't there. So they can't fulfill their dreams and their goals. They can't fulfill their ambitions of starting up a company, being an entrepreneur. They're not able to do that because money gets in the way. Folks, we give so much money. There's government kickbacks to special interests, corporations, poisoning the environment, too much military expenditures, foreign wars, and we can't have free education for our young millennials and for our young people to realize their dreams and their very goals. The matters of their heart, what they want to do with their life. And again, it pays back into the economy. It goes back towards taxes, and they're buying more goods and services. And, they in turn can create jobs if they're entrepreneurs themselves in the future. If they're entrepreneurs in the future too, that can go towards creating more jobs. Again, like I said, it pays into the economy. The more of them are getting jobs, the more of them are getting careers. It goes into the tax system. And, obviously, if they're making good money, they're buying goods and services. And really what it matters is if they want to start their own business or something like that, they're able to. Because they've had the education and they've had the training to do that. Or if they're an artist, some great art project. I'm an artist too. Folks, it's time for free education. War and peace. It is not peace out, it's peace in, ladies and gentlemen. Bernie says, as everyone knows, we live in a difficult and dangerous world, and there's people out there who want to do us harm. There is. North Korea's got nukes right now, and we don't know a whole lot about them. And they sable rattle, and I think it's time for diplomacy and negotiation with them and find out what they want. Are they trying to, are they just saber rattling, or saber rattlings, they're intending a war, are they just showing bravado? Are they showing off? Do they mean war? Do they mean business? Do they mean to destroy people? Or are they trying to get attention? They feel left out of the world stage. They're trying to blackmail people. You have to understand, and you don't negotiate with your friends, you negotiate with your enemies. And I've always believed in a carrot and stick matter of diplomacy and negotiation. Like Kennedy, with the Cuban Missile Crisis and everything. If people want to be welcomed into the world community, and this is the carrot, there's always the carrot there. If they want peace, if they want peaceful relations and peaceful coexistence, and they want trade and foreign aid and stuff like that. But then, obviously everything's on the table too, and that's the stick. But so often we have these stupid preemptive wars, and people literally jumping the gun, literally rushing and leaping to war, destabilizing nations, creating power vacuums, which creates, there's more insurgencies. We're seen sometimes as invaders and conquerors, not liberators and heroes. And, it creates more terrorists. It radicalizes the population. With every tomb and body bag and morgue and hospital and coffin that is filled, with every limb that is blown off, these poisonous terrorists, these vipers, if you will, for lack of a better term, then they seduce people against us. We don't hate the people of the Middle East. We don't hate Muslims. I don't hate Muslims, and I don't hate the people of the Middle East. I'm just going to say that right now. It's terrorism. It's terrorism. That's the real problem. It's not, we want to make war against Islam. We want to make war against the people of the Middle East, against more Arab nations. It's not that we hate Muslims or we hate Arabic peoples. I think they're great people. I really do. I think from my heart, everyone that I've met and everyone that I've ever known in my life, a guy that I buy donaires from at a donaire stand, he's from the Middle East. I think he's a Persian guy. He's like one of the sweetest people I know, him and his family and his wife. I want to say this, I think that most people are kind, again, whether they're Christians, whether they're Jews or Muslims or Buddhists or whatever, atheists. I believe most people have good in them. We're not all good. We're still flawed, imperfect people. I am, everyone is. But I believe most people are kind and caring and loving and peaceful and compassionate people. By and large, generally, overall, and all things considered, if you will. And, so I want to make that very clear. I love the people of the Middle East. I love them with all my heart. I love the Muslim people. I love the Arabic people. I love my fellow Christians, my brothers and sisters in Christ. I love everyone. And, I'd like to see foreign policies that represent that. And so often these wars are fought for ulterior motives, and we've all heard about those. I don't really even need to go into that. It's resources, there's lots of different reasons why, and I could really bore you senseless with that. Empire, conquest, supremacy, domination, and a lot of that is coveting, and a lot of that is selfishness, and a lot of that is greed. And I just believe that we need a more rational and peaceful foreign policy that stresses, things like diplomacy and negotiation, that stresses a peaceful means and methods and ways and resolutions and solutions that lead to peace agreements and peace settlements and peace arrangements. That's the kind of thing we need. And we need to do that as best as we can, and as far and as much and as good as often as possible. That's what I believe. So, what does Bernie have to say about this? He says we live in a difficult and dangerous world. There's people out there who want to do us harm. He's right. And as president, I believe he means this. He says, I will defend this nation, but I will do it responsibly. That's the thing. Responsibly. He says that he wants to do it responsibly. So often with the preemptive wars and preemptive assaults and strikes without clear and present danger, without a legitimate, actual, or immediate threats, as in Iraq, what we saw, and again, there was a lot of different reasons for that war. I'm not going to go into it. But the fact of the matter is, basically, we thought we were going to be liberators. People resented us. So there was more militias, there was more death squads, there was more insurgencies, there was more terrorists. And when the Iraqi army was disbanded, and really the ex-Ba'ath regime had nowhere else to go, along came Al-Qaeda and terrorist groups and pulled them towards them. They had a lot of jobs, or no jobs, but a lot of guns and stuff like that too. So there's unwise decisions like that. There's preparing for the peace, not just preparing for the war, but can you prepare for the peace responsibly? Are you prepared to deal with perhaps a radicalized population? Are you prepared to deal with more insurgencies, more militias, more power vacuums? Folks, we don't want dominoes tipping. We don't want dominoes tipping where, we look at a situation like we're creating more refugees right now because there's bombs being raining death down upon them. Russia and all that's raining bombs down on them and stuff like that. And of course the Assad regime's not perfect, but if you take him out, what happens? You get ISIS in control. So, I mean, we have to have rational policies, and deal with these things a bit at a time sometimes. And I think that's what we really need is rational, responsible, as he's talking about, reasonable policies where we're not creating more terrorists, where we're not creating more widows, where we're not creating more orphans, mourning their parents mourning their children, cradling in their arms, their children dead. And why should parents outliving their children is really tragic. Or children outliving their parents is tragic too. You think about situations like that. Widows, all of this. And these are innocent people, a lot of them too, and they end up becoming refugees. No homes, nothing to go back to but death, doom, annihilation, and destruction over there. And then, like I say, then, do we want to hand the Middle East over to terrorist groups? Or do we want to win people's hearts and minds? Maybe we need humanitarian aid. Maybe we need, to be doing more in the area of foreign aid and humanitarian aid. Not just to win their hearts and minds, because it's kind, caring, loving, and compassionate. And I really think there's something to the peacekeeping approach, the diplomacy and negotiation, and dialogue and discussion approach. I really believe that. We don't want dominoes tipping, folks. We don't want, this is a true domino effect. They talked about it back in Vietnam. But this is a real kind of domino here. When you do preemptive wars, and and you definitely don't have a peace plan too, and there's no clear and present danger or immediate threat, number one, that can make a country seen as an aggressor to the rest of the world. Number two, again, radicalized population, you're killing more innocent people. Do we want to kill innocent people? No, they're not our enemy. They're our friends. We love them. We love them from our heart. Now the thing is, like I said, that leads to more tribal warfare, more warlords vying for power in the power vacuum and a power struggle. That leads to more insurgencies, again, more terrorism. We don't want to hand over the entire Middle East to terrorists, and then it just leads to fomenting more wars. More regional wars for power and supremacy and conquest and domination. More of civil wars, if we really want to do things, we got to be really careful about this one. We don't want to lead to holy wars, because let's love everybody, man. Let's love everyone. We're all humans and we're all people. We are all humans and we're all people. We're all creations of God, I think. And I'd rather that we be friends, man. And these are dominoes. These are dominoes, and we end up getting holy wars. And that's something that we don't want to. We don't want to promote a holy war, and we don't want to promote a nuclear arms race. So certainly diplomacy and negotiation is something that definitely can do that. And also, I believe that it's something that we can address human rights issues, and people want to be welcomed to the world community for peace and peaceful coexistence and greater friendship. Somewhere down the line, and greater trade, they'll give thought to that. And sponsoring terrorists and stuff like that. The smartest, best way to do things is war as a last resort, not the first or the only resort. Bernie talks about Iraq here. He says, as a member of Congress, I voted against the war in Iraq. And that was the right vote. Hail to the chief, Bernie. Hail to the chief. He says, I am vigorously opposed to an endless war in the Middle East. That's another thing, too. Do we want our own troops dying? Bernie's got a point here. Our brave, loyal, courageous men and women, I support our troops. Even if I may not support all these wars, I'm not a supporter of Vietnam or Iraq, but I support the troops. That's his point here. We don't want an endless war. We're putting our troops in harm's way too. Not just collateral damage and civilian casualty, which is hell on earth for innocent bystanders. And that's basically a massacre. So he's vigorously opposed to an endless war in the Middle East. A war which is unwise and unnecessary. He's right. Look at what happened with Iraq. I have just explained how I feel about that. He says we must be vigorous in combating terrorism and defeating ISIS. He's right about that too. And we could give thoughts to maybe counterterrorism or something like that. Obama did it with Osama bin Laden, no muss, no fuss, basically, as far as things go, as opposed to, a lot of these bombings, which is raining death, from predator drones or airplanes. And, it's turning the ones that live into refugees because they don't want to die and they don't want their children to die. And other ones, like I said, it's blowing off their limbs and it's putting them in coffins, innocent people. This isn't good, and a ground war would do even more of that, In Iraq alone, I believe 1 million people died. As far as my understanding is, millions died in Vietnam. There was atrocities on all sides, actually, at some point, too. Again, I support our troops, so I do want to say that, our Canadian and American troops. And I believe that, like 90% of them are really good people who believe in defending their country and preserving peace and protecting order and protecting our civilians over here and civilians abroad. I believe most of them have the best of intentions. But that doesn't necessarily follow that the war is right. That doesn't follow that the war is the right thing to do with the right rationale, nor that it will have the right consequences, nor will that have the right results, ladies and gentlemen. As we saw in Vietnam, that was a terrible fiasco. The bombings of Cambodia, I watched a thing on Richard Nixon last night, and it was horrifying to look at the images. Just horrifying. I do believe that most of our troops, again, are courageous, loyal, and brave people dedicated to the country and to the cause of peace, freedom, and security. But again, that doesn't mean that the war is a good thing. And I conscientiously do object to the war in Vietnam back in the day, well, if I lived back then, and certainly Afghanistan. They had to rout the Taliban and they had to go after Al-Qaeda, but this turned into an invasion with garrisons and occupations. And that's the kind of thing that makes civilian populations radicalized, and it creates resentment, and it creates fear. And that fear, terrorists will turn that, and they'll turn people against us, and it creates a vicious cycle. 9/11 created Iraq, created the crisis that's happening right now in Syria. We really got to take a look at that. We want to break that cycle right now. So when Bernie talks about, foreign policy that's wise and necessary, I agree with him. He says we must be vigorous in combating terrorism and defeating ISIS. Again, I repeated that one, but we should not have to bear that burden alone.